Bolt, the Ultimate Sea Coaster, is the world's first roller coaster on a cruise ship. It made its debut on the Carnival Mardi Gras in early 2020. It's a Maurer spike coaster located all the way up on the top deck. That's like the 20th floor. At its highest point, it's 187 feet above sea level. The entire track length is just under 800 feet long, and riders reach a max speed of 37 miles per hour. The entire ride is powered by electricity, meaning it is not gravity driven. In other words, it does not coast like a typical roller coaster. There are gears on the ride vehicle that interact with teeth positioned all along the track, so the vehicle can move at whatever speed it's programmed to. Now, this was not the first Maurer spike coaster to make its debut. That would be Sky Dragster at Skyline Park, which opened in 2017. But there's not too many of them out there. You got one in Italy at Mirabilandia. There's a new one going to Six Flags Qiddiya in Saudi Arabia. And now there's also one on two of Carnival's other ships, the Celebration and the Jubilee. It's a really unique setup. I remember being at the unveiling of Bolt back in November 2019. It was at the IAAPA Expo. Shaq was there. We got to see the ride vehicle, and then being able to actually experience it was really quite cool. You know, 99.9% of the time that you experience a roller coaster, it's at a theme park. Now you're on top of a cruise ship out in the middle of the ocean. You're not used to it at all, and it just provides some spectacular views. You know, the view is probably the best thing about this. Flying over the top of the ship, seeing the water out below you is something else. But let's talk about that actual ride experience and what it's like to experience this roller coaster. First off, you have to book a spot on the cruise ship. There's no way to just walk up to the ship and ride it if you're not a part of the cruise. And because the ship is so big, they only do 7-day trips. So it's definitely a time commitment to ride this. We sailed out of Port Canaveral. We made stops in the Bahamas, Dominican Republic, and Turks and Caicos. It was really a fantastic experience. Bolt was like the icing on the cake as far as everything that we got to experience, but it certainly was the instigator for inspiring us to take the trip. In fact, we liked it so much that we're doing it again next year. Coaster Cruise 2025. We'll be sailing on the Carnival Jubilee out of Galveston, Texas next February. If when you're watching this video it inspires you to want to go out and experience it, come join us on next year's cruise, coastercruise.com. We're getting a huge group of roller coaster fans together. It's going to be an awesome time. I know everyone who went on this year's cruise had a blast. And you know, when you join the Coaster Cruise, one benefit you get is essentially a free ride on Bolt. Usually it's $15 to experience it, but with the Coaster Cruise you get a $50 credit per cabin. So you can put that right towards experiencing the coaster. It's an upcharge for capacity purposes. I mean, look at those vehicles, 2 riders per car, only 2 vehicles on the track at a time. With over 6,000 people on the ship, I mean, it would get a long line otherwise. But I feel like you do get your money's worth. You go around twice, which really helps. I mean, obviously it's not a super long ride, and I think it would feel really short if it didn't go around twice. This way, it's a much more satisfying ride experience. You'll have to make a reservation for Bolt within the Carnival Hub app. They have time slots for your experience, so you just reserve a time. If for whatever reason the ride is not operating when your time comes, you'll get a credit and then you can book another time when it's back up. You have a half-hour window to go up and experience it, so you head up to the top deck. You'll notice the safety signs do have some restrictions. You can't be over 300 pounds and they do weigh you before you get on. You also can't be over 6'5", and the minimum height requirement is 4 foot 4 inches. 2 passengers will hop on at a time. Buckle your seatbelt. You feel nice and secure. You start to roll out of the station. You'll come to a stop. The light will turn green and then you take off. And I'll say that this first launch has some kick to it. I think it's more punchy when you come back around for that second launch through the station. But you know, I didn't have super high expectations here. Didn't think there were going to be a lot of crazy forces. But I felt that kick. It was pretty good. Your first moment is this upwards helix that goes right over the mini golf course. As you start to rise up and hit your highest point, you do slow down a bit. I noticed that the fastest moments were in the valleys. It's an awesome visual for those standing on that deck watching this thing fly above your heads. There's so many great photo ops. As you exit the helix, you're right up alongside the ship going over 2 different hills. Personally, I didn't get any airtime going over them. I don't think that's really the point. I don't think you have enough speed to be sent up out of your seat, but it's just cool riding up alongside the ship. I mean, that in itself is an extremely unique experience. This one hill is just slightly outer bank too, so that's kind of cool. And then you turn to the left, and then that's when you re-enter the station. Now, something you should know about this ride vehicle is that each one is equipped with a boost button. So on your right handlebar, if you rotate your hand during the ride experience, you'll essentially speed up. Now, you have to be strategic about when you use this, because there's certain points of the course where it's not going to work. Like, it won't impact the speed through the helix, and I think that last turn. But if you use it right as you're about to go into a hill, then I think that should impact that moment. Or what I especially recommend, hit it right as you're about to engage with that second launch, so you speed up even more. It's a nice way to feel like you're in control. Of course, you don't have to use it. The ride will move automatically. there are 2 ride vehicles on the track at a time, so the only other time that this boost would essentially not work is if it would cause you to get too close to the other vehicle. Because the ride is not gravity driven, the vehicles can stop at any point on the track, so it doesn't have a traditional block system. Any point along the course can be a block, and the computer is smart enough to know where each of the ride vehicles are at all times and maintain a safe distance between them. That can also mean that the system can be kind of temperamental, especially on top of a cruise ship. Unfortunately for Bolt, the ride can have a lot of technical issues. For one, it won't operate in the rain, and it needs several hours afterwards to open back up because they need the track to be completely dry. Typically, that takes about 2 hours because once the sun is out, it dries it completely, but if it's cloudy, then naturally it'll take longer. Another thing that impacts the ride's reliability is wind. When you're on the top deck of the cruise ship, it's a lot windier than if you're towards the bottom. So for that reason, I highly recommend riding Bolt as soon as you get on the ship when you're docked at port. Of the 3 stops that the Mardi Gras made during our week, Bolt was open for 2 of them. In total, it was operating for 3 of the 7 days. I've heard from people that have taken the cruise where it's operated for even less. So better safe than sorry, ride it as soon as you get on the ship, as soon as you find out it's open. And frankly, it shouldn't be that hard to figure out it's operating because you can feel the rumbling from several floors below you. If you're paying attention, yeah, you'll know when Bolt is open. It's also in your favor to book a ride earlier because as the week goes on, less and less spots become available because when it's closed, people's reservations get canceled, so they push them towards later. At the end of the week, there won't be as many spots available. So let's talk final scores. And this is a difficult one because if this ride were located on the ground, it frankly wouldn't be that exciting. It'd be basically a kid's coaster, right? But the location is what makes it. So I think what I'm going to do is give it a 7. Because obviously you can't have this huge, massive thrill ride on top of a cruise ship. It's just not realistic. So what they're able to accomplish with this ride is really cool. And that's not saying that the Maurer Spike Coaster is like an amazing ride or anything. Like, it's honestly shakier than it should be. And it's definitely weird speeding up at unnatural points in the layout because it essentially chooses how fast to go at any given moment. Obviously, I'd prefer a different type of ride on top of a ship. But as far as going with like a non-gravity driven coaster for this, I think they did a pretty good job. And it inspired someone like me to take a cruise, which I didn't have as much interest in before. And I had a fantastic time. And that's why I recommend people go to coastercruise.com. Come join us on next year's cruise. I think you'll be just as surprised as we were. The trip begins February 1st and lasts until the 8th. We'll be making 2 stops in Mexico and 1 in Honduras. There will be multiple opportunities for exciting excursions, including seeing ancient ruins and relaxing at the beach. Plus, we'll be departing from right near the Galveston Pleasure Pier, and we'll be organizing a group get-together on Iron Shark. And I know Boardwalk Bullet is also nearby at Kemah, so if you haven't had the opportunity to experience those rides yet, this is the perfect opportunity to meet us in Texas for a week on the Carnival Jubilee. And hopefully you'll have as memorable of a trip as we had this past year, because it really was an incredible experience. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Post your thoughts down below if you've experienced Bolt, what you thought of it, and stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.